We're back, boys! Welcome to my spoiler talk for Daredevil Season 2. And, I may hate editing these TV series spoiler talks, but, man, have I missed this show. Oh, man, have I missed this show. Immediately from the get-go in the first episode, I was just like, I'm back, yes, back with Matthew. So this episode starts off with Daredevil doing Daredevil things in the night. You got these guys with briefcases full of, I don't know, diamonds, I guess. And they're running away from the cops. And Daredevil chases them and takes them basically out one by one. But there's one in like a kitchen where Daredevil takes some guy out. And these chefs starts beating on them. But it all ends in church. As it always does, doesn't it? One guy takes a girl into church as a hostage. So Matt walks in and beats him up. So the night is saved, and then the next day Foggy and Matt are walking, and you know, they're basically having a good time until the conversation of Daredevil kind of creeps in with the fact that Matt's got a bit of blood. And that conversation doesn't necessarily go all that well because Foggy still doesn't like it. So Matt tells him a story. You know that one person who came to us who wanted help because she had an abusive husband, and you told her to go to a women's shelter? Yeah, her husband found out and went after her. And if I hadn't been there, she'd be gone. She'd be dead. He's like, you never told me that story. It's like, nah. So Daredevil, in a sense, is what this city needs. Especially because the stuff that Daredevil does is too small for the Avengers. The cops will handle it. No, they won't. But Foggy is still worried about Matt, so that is nice to see. So they enter their office, and they got a bunch of clients and no money. That's what we learn. But the clientele is there, so that's at least good. And then at night, we have the, apparently as they are called, the Kitchen Irish, which, yeah, that's not a dumb name at all. Oh my god, have I heard stupider names before. But this one actually is up there in one of the stupid names. But they want to expand because the city used to belong to the Irish. And then Fisk came and just ruined their day. So now that Fisk is gone, they can expand and take back this city. And then bullets come flying in from the Punisher, who just takes everyone out except for one guy who later on we learn is named Grotto. He jumps behind the counter and lives. The only thing he has is a wound in his side. Also, during this after this was done, Punisher apparently stole someone's hand or something. I don't know. A hand is missing later on. So, while all of this is happening, Matt is at the bar with Foggy and Karen, having a good time. So Foggy leaves. Also, don't drink the water here because the fact that the pipes have mold in it or whatever. Disgusting garbage. So don't drink the water. But Foggy goes to do something. I guess he goes to the toilet. I'm just gonna say he goes to the toilet. And then a romance blossoms between Matt and Karen, kind of. And then after that, we have Grotto, who is at the bar. So Matt walks over to him, and he says he's here for Nelson and Murdoch. And then tells his story about the fact, yeah, look, alright, I'm not a good guy, but I need protection, because otherwise I'm gonna be dead, alright? The Irish were hit by an army. Yeah, Punisher is known to be an army. But initially they are hesitant. However, afterwards, Matt, because of his super hearing, can hear that Grotto isn't lying. So they basically agree, and then Grotto gets knocked out. So Karen apparently takes him to the hospital, and Foggy and Matt go over to the crime scene where they meet Brett, and they ask him for help, and Brett is like no, and then eventually he's like, alright, fine, because Matt's like, so why were they taking body armor to meetings? Because apparently the Punisher used bullets that can pierce body armor. He used like high-end military stuff. So he eventually says that, look, alright, a bunch of bad stuff is happening, so maybe just leave this one alone. And Matt overhears them, another cops being like, wow, this is just like what happened to the Dogs of Hell. So Matt later on says that to Foggy, and Foggy decides to go to the Dogs of Hell while Matt suits up and goes after the Punisher, or at least he's gonna try and find some info. So Daredevil visits Turk for some info, which I like that Turk wants to grab a gun, and then Daredevil just closes the back of the car. It's funny. And then he asks Turk about it. Turk doesn't really know much, but then he does know stuff, and basically tells Daredevil what always the story is. If you take out the Kingpin, then everyone's gonna scramble for what the Kingpin has to gain power. But he does lead him to he does tell him a location, and I like how Matt just takes the car keys, and then Turk is like, look, alright, I've been gone from Hell's Kitchen. I missed Hell's Kitchen, okay? Just let me go, okay? You already broke my hand. You got glass that I need to replace. Just please. And then Matt's like, Hell's Kitchen didn't miss you, and throws his keys into the water and goes away to a meat shop full of dead men, apparently, except for one where he gets the info that he needs, because he asks who did this, what army, and then the dude's like, not army, one man. So Matt leaves. Meanwhile, with Foggy, he goes to the Dogs of Hell. He wants to search for Smitty, but apparently he's dead, and also the Dogs of Hell are a bit suspicious about that. However, because of the fact that Foggy helped a guy named Pope, I think that was his name, because he named a bunch of names. So I think Pope was the one that actually got him some info. But because of the fact that he helped Pope, he is allowed to go, he is allowed to leave without dying. But Foggy then asks more, and it's like, you got some cure. It's like, it's not cure, it's adrenaline. But apparently we learned that Smitty was killed by the Punisher. So basically the Iris and the Dogs of Hell were hit by the same person. Meanwhile, at the hospital, we have a smashing looking fellow who enters this place with a long jacket, and he is holding a shotty. Also, Karen got him to the hospital under a fake name, so that works too. So Punisher then shoots up the hospital, kind of, in order to kill Grotto. However, as we learn later on, Punisher doesn't shoot innocent people. That is why he can't kill Grotto, because Punisher's got really good aim, but when there's an innocent person in the way, aim kinda tends to go a little bit sideways, especially when you got a shotgun, which has a spread radius, in case you know. So, Punisher makes it to the roof, he puts a sniper, and he tries to shoot the Grotto in the car, and then Daredevil attacks him. And I'm gonna be honest here, I forgot that they had a fight this early on, but this season has a lot to deal with, so I guess we kinda just need to get into it. But Matt actually loses the fight. Punisher is that good. He takes care of Matt, but Matt fights back. And when Matt has Punisher on the ropes, Punisher grabs the gun that he has on his leg and shoots him. And that's how the episode ends. Also, the only word that Punisher has said throughout the entirety of episode 1, and also his first word, was bang. I love that. That's the only word he used in the... That's the first word he says in the MCU. Bang. Maybe spoke his first words. So in episode 2, Foggy goes to the roof where Matt and Frank fought and finds him. He actually finds Matt. And I'm gonna be honest here, I thought that this was the episode in which Punisher kidnaps Matt, and that this episode would be the rooftop talk. No, at the end of this episode he takes Matt, but the next episode we have the rooftop talk. But he finds Matt there, takes him back home, somehow in broad daylight, and Foggy basically wants Matt to just stop being Daredevil, but Matt has to be the one to stop Frank, because if he doesn't, the Punisher is going to... Like, the cops can't do anything. He will literally go through the cops like they're nothing. But Matt decides to take a rest after he has a bit of a headache problem, and he goes deaf for a part of this episode. Actually deaf, and when he becomes deaf, he also is blind, so that's fun. So, Foggy goes back to Grotto, and basically like, look, you decided it was an army. Now, what am I hearing now? It's one man? It's like, yeah, okay, but we thought, look, one man taking down gang after gang. That's like a ghost story or a video game, okay? It's not real. So he thought Punisher was a ghost story, which is why he didn't believe that it was real. And also why he didn't tell it before. And now they have to make a deal with the DA. However, that DA that DA is not really a nice person. She's also from Jessica Jones, so that's nice. And we also get a Clemens reference from Brad, so that was also nice. Some connection to Jessica Jones. Without, like, making this, like, a huge connection, Brad just is like, oh, what did Clemens used to say? It's like, great. But Foggy has a backbone and goes back against the DA, Reyes. And I love the way that he pushes back against her. Puts her in her place. These, like, important government people always think they can push everyone around. But Foggy puts them in their place. So they basically have a deal. Grotto needs to talk to someone named Brass, which made me think of Metabots. And after that, he's free. He just needs to wear a wire. Simple as that. So initially, it's like, no, not him. And then afterwards, like, alright, fine. Meanwhile, with the Punisher, he goes over to this store and he needs a, basically a cop radio. that is basically really good. Look, he said it in the episode. I still don't know what he meant. So the guy behind the counter is like, no, I don't sell that stuff. That is illegal. So Punisher puts down some money and is like, look, man, are you sure you're not a cop? Right, I had to ask. I got this thing. It's 1,000. So Punisher puts down 1,000. And then he's like, all right, I also want the videotape so that no one ever knows that he was here. So he puts down more money. And then he's like, also the shotgun under the counter. Puts down some more money. Everything gets put in a bag. Punisher grabs the bag and walks out. And look, this guy may be a little bit of a criminal because he sells illegal stuff. But that's about all he's doing. He's not actually hurting people. He's just selling some stuff. Nothing wrong with that. Until he says one thing. Because he has some naughty videos of like bondage, grannies. He has basically anything. And then he opens his mouth and reveals his most precious of his collection. She's barely 12. That's what he says. So Frank stops in his tracks, puts down his bag, rotates the sign to make sure that the shop is closed, goes back to the guy, grabs a baseball bat, and beats him to death. Presumably, we don't actually get to see it. But dude, you could have lived. This man could have lived, by the way, if he had just kept his mouth shut, alright? Look, you already got a bunch of money from Punisher for selling all this stuff. Let it go. But he kills him because, you know, fiddling with the kiddies is not allowed. So once again, Punisher shows off that he is a good guy. Killing criminals and taking care of the, monsters. Let's say that, okay? So after all of this, Matt's hearing is now back, and Karen questions him about the alcohol problem, but Matt tries to push it away. So later on, Matt goes over to Melvin. Nice to see you again, Melvin. Oh, what a nice guy. And Melvin thinks it was a warning shot, which it most certainly was, because if Punisher wanted it, Daredevil would be dead. And Melvin gets a bit paranoid, but then Matt kind of puts him at ease, and he's like, how long until I can get the mask back? So Melvin fixes the mask, and Matt goes to the Irish, and he finds that the dog is missing. Or at least he finds a chain, and then he smells like, oh, there's a dog here. There was a dog here. So then he follows that to a place, but then you have the streets are being cleaned. However, at that point, Matt hears a police radio. So he goes over there to check it out, gives the dog some food, and then hears over the radio what is happening with Foggy and Karen and Reyes and Grotto. So he heads over there, and Punisher, at this point, goes to the dogs of hell to basically finish off more of them. And we have one guy with one eye, and he will become more important later on. So Grotto, he only has to get the guy, Brass, to confess to dealing drugs. That's it. So Grotto gets out. He goes over to the location and sees someone, goes over to him. Turns out this wasn't about Brass at all, because they used Grotto as bait to get the Punisher out. So a truck starts approaching the place, and all the cops are shooting at the truck. And that turns out that was a diversion, because the guy with one eye is in there dead. And then Punisher is ready to kill Grotto, and then Matt throws down the smoke bomb and fights with the Punisher. And he actually this time has a bit more on the upper hand, outside of the fact that the cops are shooting at them. However, they fall down, and then Matt has a headache. He once again gets his hearing problem again. And Punisher uses this to capture Matt. And that is how the episode ends. Here we are, boys. The infamous rooftop episode. Oh, it's just as good as I remembered from back in the day. So this episode starts off in a weird way of a nun taking care of Matt. I don't know when that takes place, but this could allude to Matt's mom, who we won't see until season 3. And then we cut to what's really happening, and Matt is just on a rooftop, and we have the talk with the Punisher. Meanwhile, Reyes is not happy about what happened, and also we learned that Frank Castle doesn't really care who Matt is under that mask. Because Matt's like, why didn't you take my mask up? He's like, I don't care who you are under there. And Foggy goes to Claire in order to find out if she knows anything about Matt's whereabouts, or if a dead body has turned up with his name on it, or if he is at a different hospital. And Grotto calls Karen and says goodbye because he's done. He doesn't say goodbye. He says it in a much more horrible way. But he does say goodbye. So Matt kind of goes on about the fact that he is a a soldier and tries to kind of empathize with him, but that doesn't really work. It's not a good angle because war is hell, and that is what Frank has gone through. He's gone through hell to get to this point. So Frank asks him, have you ever been in a war? And my initial thought was like, well, to be honest, last season did kind of feel like a war though, but not in the way that a war would normally happen. However, I don't think they would allow the blind to go into a war zone, but maybe that's just me. Which they also say that in this episode about a war zone, and it's like, Punisher war zone. I know it's not a reference, but I'll count it. And Matt keeps talking, and also we get the fact that Punisher calls him Red, which, I love it. He better call him Red in Born Again. Alright, full disclosure, haven't seen it yet. This is recorded before Daredevil Born Again comes out, okay? But you better call him Red in the show. But Punisher has one line afterwards. It's like, do you charge by the hour, Doc? I like that. The Punisher's getting ready for something. He's got a bunch of military-grade hardware. He is ready for something. We learned that at the end of the episode. So we have the infamous fight between Daredevil and Punisher. As in, what you are doing isn't working. Because Punisher, he makes sure that the people who do the crime, they get put in the ground so that they can't commit another crime. Meanwhile, Matt believes in the good in people. So that he takes them down, puts them in jail, and maybe, just maybe, they'll reform. Or maybe not, and he'll take them down again. And we have that infamous discussion. And I really love this talk because you don't really get a lot of a talk like this in like superhero stuff. Usually we stop the bad guy, and if you read comics or watch TV shows, they're back on the street next week. Or you watch movies, they get put in jail and never recommit another crime unless we need them to. And that also means that they don't get put in jail mainly. Because I don't really know if anyone really ever like recommitted a crime in the MCU that didn't come from like a show. Because like each movie and also each TV series, they all have like the next villain instead of a previous villain. Well, I guess with Born Again, maybe a previous villain, because Bullseye from season 3 is gonna be in Born Again. So let's get the hospital talk out of the way. So Claire is at the hospital, and she says that she got punished for helping a guy who is really, really strong. And the only thing she kind of forgot to say was also that he was pretty black. As in Luke Cage reference, boys. You gotta love it. But she apparently got punished for helping Luke Cage, which, alright, cool. And Foggy, you know, he tries to ask her for help, but she kind of dismisses him a bit because she's busy. However, then a fight in the hospital breaks out because they each think that the other one did the crime. When, let's be honest here, in actuality, probably was Punisher who did the crime. But Foggy is able to talk both of them down by saying, look, I don't care if you want to kill each other. It doesn't matter to me anyway. Just don't do it in a hospital, alright? You can give each other the stink eye all you want. You can even point your tongue out at each other. But don't attack each other in the hospital, okay? You have an infinite amount of witnesses. You have cops everywhere. You will literally lose the rest of your life if you go through with this. And they back down, and I was like, there you go, Foggy, that's how you do it. So back on the rooftop, Punisher basically is like, I'm not the bad guy. And also that he takes pride in his job. Do I know the event for you? But he's proud of the work that he does, because at least when he kills people, it doesn't, like, they can't recommit a crime. And let's be honest here, he's right. But also, he's also wrong. Because as, you know, Matt, a good Catholic boy, would say, punishment is for God to do, not for us. Meanwhile, Karen tries to blackmail Blake, the assistant to the DA, the assistant to Reyes, to ask for protection from being thrown to the wolves and also for the Punisher files. And Blake is like, no, I am not gonna do that. While he grabs the Punisher files and gives it to her, he's like, no, in case, you know, there's any monitoring happening. He's basically like, get out of my office. But she does get the files. Also, an old man comes to the rooftop because Daredevil and Punisher are making a bit too much noise. And Frank is like, look, if you say anything, he's dead, okay? So he goes over to him, trades a bit of war stories. Daredevil makes a bit of noise. Punisher puts the gun to the door, makes sure that Daredevil hears it, but they trade a bit of war stories. So now we know that Punisher was in the Afghanistan war. And also, we officially learn that his name is Frank. So after a bit more talking, Frank eventually knocks Matt out. And during the time that he was knocked out, Frank taped a gun to his hand and found Grotto and takes him to the roof. So Punisher wants him to admit of the crime that he committed. And Grotto initially doesn't, but then eventually he's like, look, alright, I had to kill someone. And I didn't know that the old lady was there. But then I had to kill her too. And Matt is like, no. So he has a bit of a decision to make. Because he has a gun. And Punisher's like, alright, either you shoot me, you shoot him, or I shoot him. One of those options is true. But Matt instead shoots the chains and fights Punisher. But Punisher shoots Grotto and basically kills him. But Grotto asks, why didn't you kill him? And then, Matt couldn't do that. But as Matt is trying to get Grotto away, Punisher gets up, grabs the gun, and fires at the dogs of hell. But when Grotto dies, Daredevil and Punisher have another battle, which this time, Daredevil wins. However, because of what Punisher did, now the dogs of hell are coming into the building in order to kill them both. So Matt... Also, we get the infamous line, 1 batch, 2 batch, a penny and a dime. But Matt grabs Frank and tries to escape with him. He puts him in the elevator in order to escape. However, then the old man from before comes out of his house and is like, what is going on over here? And then the dogs of hell are about to attack him. So Matt stops the elevator, gets out, but lets the elevator go down. And he fights his way through the dogs of hell. And... we have another hallway fight, boys. It's not as impressive as the one-cut hallway fight from Season 1, but it is still a really good fight scene. He fights his way entirely through the Dogs of Hell, with cuts, obviously. But this one looks like it doesn't have any cuts, even though it is easier to make cuts, because sometimes they zoom in a little bit too much. For example, they zoom into one of the biker's jackets, and then it goes black a bit, and then it zooms back out, and it's like you can easily put a cut there. But he gets through everyone. However, after all is said and done, Punisher slipped away, sadly enough, so he's gone. And back at the office, Karen is going through the files. She finds an x-ray from Frank with a bullet hole through the skull. Alright, here we are to the finale of the Punisher arc, I guess. So this episode starts off with a Irish funeral. And then we have a guy named Finn who arrives, takes out Sheamus, and becomes basically the new leader. Or he is the leader of the Irish. And he basically just wants the Punisher because the Punisher, for one, killed his son. But more importantly, stole 1.2 mil from him. So, the Irish start tearing up the city looking for Frankie Boy. He is one popular fellow. But through all this searching, Finn eventually learns where Frank lives. So they go over there, they see the dog that used to belong to them. And also, he looks on the map and he sees a carousel and he's like, ah, so that's who you are. And he leaves while Frank is outside and he watches it all go down. Meanwhile, the main gang is having a service for Grotto after he died. And Karen is very adamant at finding Frank, so she goes off on her own to find Frank. Meanwhile, speaking of which, Frank is setting up a trap for the Irish. We don't know it's a trap yet, but he basically parks his van somewhere, and he has the money, he gets out and walks away. I don't know why he had to blow up his own van to do it, but hey, you know what, whatever works. He could have just dumped it somewhere. And Matthew gets some new stuff from Melvin, a new helmet and some new glove set. I was thinking a fully new suit. It would have been cool to give him a new suit, but to be honest, we have barely kind of seen this suit. We saw it in the finale of Season 1 and then in the first 3 episodes of Season 2. Let's have some more time with this good-looking suit, which I actually very much like. I love the red and black combo. And I love how realistic the suit looks as well. Meanwhile, with Karen, she finds out who worked at the hospital. So she finds him and she asks him some questions about it. And the dude basically says, look, the guy was a Jane Doe and also people in suits were looking for him. And also, he died and came back to life a minute later. And he wanted me to take him home and... shouldn't have did that, but I did it, so that's why I lost my job. And now Karen is like, ooh, so you have an address for me? Write that down for me, will you? I might pay that a visit. Meanwhile, at night, Frank is sitting in the park at the carousel, having flashbacks, and then the Irish appear, And Frank tries to fight his way out, but he gets put to sleep, basically. Or knocked out. I don't know, like a syringe gets stuck in him. I don't know what's in the syringe. And then he gets caught by the Irish because they want their money. Meanwhile, Karen visits Frank's house, kind of explores, and learns that he has a family. He has 2 kids and a wife. Or had, I guess. And that's basically all she learns. Outside of the fact that the people in black suits are still looking for Frank. Because it seems like Frank hasn't been home. Because Karen trips a security device. Because when she walks up the stairs, there's a green light that goes off. So, Matt goes off into the night as Daredevil in order to see what crime has been popping up. And apparently there have been some places that have been shot. So he asks Brad about it. And Brad's like, yeah, this wasn't the Punisher. This was the search for Punisher. And then Brad gets a call about... Also, Brad is very suspicious of Daredevil. It happens. And also is like, look, because of people like you, and I guess the Avengers, the badge means nothing. Which will come into play later. But Matt goes off to the carousel. He sees... Well, he finds a bunch of dead Irish men and one alive one. So he interrogates him and is like, yeah, we have Frank. And eventually Daredevil gets the location out of him. And then he goes over there to rescue Frank. So Frank is being interrogated. He gets a drill in his foot. He is not moving at all. This man is not speaking. He is speaking, but he's not speaking the words that they want to hear. So eventually they bring in the dog. And they use that as bait. So Frank is like, alright, fine. I know the location. Look, the location. There's a van right here. And that's where your money is. Okay, just leave the dog alone. And I was like, they were willing to threaten a dog? I will support any murder that happens with them. So, while Finn is waiting for a call back from the boys, because he calls the boys to send him over there, we saw either earlier in this episode or in the last episode that Frank put something under his skin. So he gets that out, and it turns out it was a small blade. So he uses that to free himself. Meanwhile, his guys are going up to the van. They open it up. They find the money. And then they also go boom. Because there was a bomb in there. And I really hope that not all of the money was in there. I kind of hope Frank saved something for himself. Because the fact that he kind of needs it. But as the money went boom, now we don't have any more use for Frank. So, kill him. However, Frank frees himself. Grabs the dude, breaks his head, disarms him, shoots him in the head. Afterwards, he shoots Finn, frees himself, grabs the shotgun, walks over to Finn. He wants to know who else was involved at the carousel night. Finn won't talk, so he shoots him dead. Meanwhile, Matthew is at the location of Punisher. And I found this very funny. He goes in, and he just hits his sticks against something in order to get their attention. It's just like, ding! And then he starts fighting everyone on his way over to Punisher. And I love the freeing scene from Punisher because it was just so badass. So eventually Punisher kind of gets a bit overwhelmed by people. So he goes 1 batch, 2 batch, penny and dime. And then Matthew comes in and hits them all. Knocks them all out. Rescues Frank. And then now they need to get out. And what I love about it is that Matt keeps preventing Frank from killing these people. I mean, like, Punisher wants to shoot someone, and then Daredevil just throws his stick, and then afterwards, he grabs a hammer in order to bash someone's head in, and then Matt stops him. Let the guy have some fun. These people were about to kill a dog. But they eventually escape, and Matt puts him down at a grave, and they have a little chat, and I love the chats between Frank and Matt. I really do. So Matt asks him about the rhyme that he keeps saying, which through Karen's eyes we learned was in a book. So he's like, you heard that, didn't you? Because Frank basically whispered that to himself, but because of Matt's super hearing, he can hear that. So he basically tells the story of how it happened, and it came from his daughter. Because he went out to the war, he came back, and he visited his daughter at, I think it was school. And his daughter just came up, running to him, hugged him. Everyone was crying except for his daughter. And then afterwards, with his wife and their son, they went home. And she wanted him to read her the rhyme. However, he was tired from coming back from the war. He was so tired. So he couldn't do it. He said, I'll read it to you tomorrow. And on that day, they died. They were killed at the carousel, as we learn later on. But at the carousel, that's where they died. And it's a beautiful story. It almost had me. It almost had me in tears. And then Frank gets arrested, and Brett wants to arrest Daredevil as well. But then Daredevil's like, look, take the win. Alright, take the W. This one's yours. People need to believe in the cops. They gotta have faith in the cops again, okay? not all cops are bad. So, he gets let go. The day is saved. Punisher has been taken care of. Fantastic. And then, back at home, Matt and Karen kiss. And Matt goes back into his apartment and he's all happy. And roll credits, baby, because we are the winners, boys. We've done it. The season's over. It's a pretty short season, except for the fact that Matt then gets a bit of a panic attack. And we have a woman sitting on his couch named Elektra. And she's like, hello, Matthew. And yeah, done with one story, the beginning of another. Let the Elektra saga begin, because this season is a bit stuffed. So episode 5 starts off with a flashback. So let's get through basically the flashback story. Because of the fact that, well, we're done with the Punisher storyline. Let's just enter the Elektra storyline, because that's the other storyline we're dealing with this season. And basically, Matt and Foggy have broken into a party. And they are basically stealing food or whatever. But Matt goes to explore the party and then meets Elektra. And then sparks fly, kind of. I mean, Matt obviously has some sparks that fly. But Elektra is a bit hesitant until he starts to become interesting. And then she's like, oh, hello. So after he gets her attention, they hit it off and they go out, steal a car. And eventually they go to the boxing training place from the first season. They break in there, and then Matt reveals about the fact that his dad is dead because of a guy named Roscoe. And also Elektra reveals that she kind of knows that there's more to Matt that meets the eye, because they've apparently been in a relationship for a bit at this point. And, well, he's had these quirky things that kind of make it seem like the man ain't blind himself. So he basically reveals that, look, I never said I was blind. That's what you said. So they have a little bit of a fight, which I like this fight, and I like one move as well, because she tries to attack him, he dodges her and spanks her booty. Afterwards, because of the fact that Matt told Elektra about who killed his dad, she decided to go and break into his home with Matthew without telling Matthew, and then wants Matt to kill Roscoe, but he didn't do it, and that's why they basically broke it off, because of the fact that they both learned who the other one truly is. Matt can't kill, no matter what, but Elektra is insane and hot, but insane. And let's be honest here, insane women can get away with anything if they're hot. So back in present day, Matt isn't really happy about Elektra being back, and she asks for his help against Roxanne, and he basically tells her leave. He wants her out. So back at the office, Foggy and Matt are talking about the fact that they have no money, and then Karen comes in very much upset about the fact that the Punisher is basically being lied about, because what they're saying is technically true, but the way that they are portraying it is technically wrong, because what they're talking about is the fact that, look, he's an insane murderous maniac, but what they forget to talk about is the fact of what he did in the army and the fact that he has a family. And when she says family, Matt is like, wait, how do you know that? I mean, obviously Matt knows it because he's Daredevil, but how does she know about that? And then she's like, I kind of broke into his house. And it's like, what do you mean? So they're not happy about that one. And if that couldn't be the worst thing that happened, Foggy checks the bank, I guess. And it turns out that someone has made a very large deposit of money. And we all know who that was. She is a big fan of nachos. So Matt starts to freak out and he basically walks off. Karen in this episode also goes off on her own adventure, which I like this adventure that she goes on, but I forgot if it ended well, so because of the fact that what she is going to become later on kind of becomes more distant from Nelson and Murdoch, but then later on the thing gets called Nelson, Murdoch, and Paige, so I forgot how this went, but anyway, she goes off on her own. So Blake Tower comes in order to ask Foggy for the files that he has on Grotto. And Foggy becomes an actual prick, and I absolutely love it. Look, when this series came out, people didn't like Foggy. Actually, like, if you went online during that time, people didn't like Foggy. I don't get it. He's great, because he's like, yeah, okay, look, I will give you it if you have a subpoena. Oh, you ain't got one of them. Well, then leave. And then he's like, we can make your life very difficult. And Foggy's like, but a subpoena is needed though. So if you get one of those, you'll get the files. But that also backfires on Nelson and Murdoch, because their clientele kind of gets blocked by Reyes. So that's not fun. We have an enemy. So Foggy eventually calls Marcy for help, and apparently Marcy now works with the wench, the horrible wicked witch, Hogarth, because she talks about the fact that they have a client there who works basically with the company, and name drops Jessica Jones. It's like, oh, okay, yeah, it's the wicked witch that Jessica works for. But it was a nice name drop of Jessica Jones, so that's nice. And we learn that Reyes wants to be mayor, and the Punisher case is how she kind of intends to do that. So that's fun. Meanwhile, with Karen goes to Ellison because of the fact that the paper wrote not the full story about Punisher. So she basically asks him about it, and then he tells her to kind of start digging. And also we get more references of Ben. It's like R.I.P. the boy. But Karen then goes through a bunch of newspaper articles during the time that the family was murdered to see if there was anything about it. But turns out there wasn't. And if the government is trying to cover it up, they would probably also cover up something like that ending up in the newspaper. So Edison has an idea, and he goes and finds one thing where we had a couple of gangs having a bit of a shootout at a park with a carousel. And now Karen learns that that's where Frank's family died. And the reason to that is because of the fact, like, what has the Punisher been going after? The Kitchen Irish, the Dogs of Hell, and another one that I forgot. But those three were at the park. And now it all clicks for her. So let's continue on with Matt. So Matt goes after Elektra. He listens in on the computer hack, which, alright, fine, whatever. And then has a date with Karen, where he gets a call from Elektra, basically her firing him and saying that he can keep the money. And then later on, he goes over to her, and she basically lured him out to fight against the Yakuza, who apparently are back, even though we took care of those people when we took care of Nobu back in season 1. So how are they back? So episode 6 starts off with a bunch of motor riding Japanese people called the Yakuza, but in actuality what they are is the Hand. And they go up into the building, and then they fight against Matt and Elektra, and they lose, and afterwards time to get some food. So basically, Matt tells Elektra that she needs to leave New York right now because this is insane. And she's like, yeah, but first, we'll take care of the Hand, but Yakuza and the Roxanne, and then afterwards, I'm gone, okay? But we'll get done with the Hand first, okay? Meanwhile, back at the office, there is an amateur lawyer there who is basically the equivalent of a male feminist, aka, you know, weak and pathetic. Because, yeah. And by the way, the whole male feminist thing is basically because of the fact that he immediately is like, oh yeah, this is my second case. My first case was actually against violence, and I am not a supporter of violence against women. It's like, alright. I like how Karen is just like, wow, thanks. Thanks from all of us. Anyway, the whole statement that you gave me to sign is wrong. It's all lies, so I'm not signing it. And when the guy is out of there, Matt comes up with the idea to help Frank Castle, because why not? And Foggy immediately is like, so, you want to help him because of who he is? Or because he's a vigilante? And then Matt is like, I want to help him because he's a person. And my first thought was like, no, this is probably just a Catholic thing. I mean, they want Castle to be given the death penalty. A Catholic wouldn't really stand for that. So, eventually Foggy agrees. They head over to Frank Castle, and they don't really get Castle's attention at all. Castle's just looking, not saying anything. And then Karen pulls a picture that she stole from his home and puts it in front of him, and he was like, "You're in my home!" And then they have to leave, and Reyes is very angry, and once again, I love the way that they stick it to her. Man, that is so good. This time, however, Matt is the main one with the voice, but Foggy does help a bit. However, Castle has agreed to have them be the representatives for trial. So they prepare themselves in order to make a case for Castle and everything. However, Matt then gets called away. So, Matt goes over to the limo, gets in, and Elektra is in there, and she's like, change. So he has to change, and what they're gonna do is they're gonna steal from Roxanne. Simple as that. So they go into this party, and they need to get the elevator keys from someone. However, you can't target him in an open place because of the fact that, well, he is being watched by everyone. So Matt has an idea. He grabs some wine, spills it on the guy, and then follows him to the bathroom where he knocks him out and his security detail. and then steals his card key. And then he gets back to Elektra, and then they go up to the 13th floor, at which point Matt uses the power of the Stealth Master in order to get past everyone. Which, if you don't know the reference, is from the Let's Play channel. But eventually they reach the office, they go inside. However, the documents are not there. But then Matt feels an electric current coming from behind a wall, so he follows it. Elektra then starts pushing on things until it opens up, and in there they find the ledger. Now it's time to escape. So they fight off a couple of people, but they are able to make it down to one or a couple of floors down, and then they pretend to have some intimate time in that sense, because of course at a party you have to have that drunk couple that goes upstairs and wants to get intimate. So they use that in order to escape, and they get out scot-free. However, as she is going through the ledger, everything is basically written in Japanese. It's all about human trafficking, stolen stuff. It's all the crimes they've committed basically right there. However, then the last thing is kind of encrypted, and they have basically on full view to anyone who can read Japanese that they do trafficking and all the other horrible stuff. But what could be so important that they have to encrypt this part and not the trafficking part? So meanwhile, back with Foggy, Karen, and Punisher. The reason that Frank accepted them as the lawyer is because of the fact that he wanted to talk to Karen, and they reminisce a bit about the past, about the kids, and also we learned that Castle hasn't been back to his own house since his family died, so he has never been back. That also explains why the alarm wasn't triggered beforehand. But they go down memory lane, and everything is fine. And then Foggy says that he worked his magic. He was able to get his sentences down enough so that in the end, if he does a good enough job, he will be out in 25 years. Simple as that. However, the bad news is that he has to be in a prison with every criminal. At which point Castle's like, sounds like a party to me. And of course he would say that. But all he has to say is that he's guilty and he can get out in 25 years and everything will be perfect. However, the problem is they also told Castle about the fact that Reyes is the evil witch who is trying to get him the death penalty. So when the rights are getting talked out, he says not guilty, to stick it to her. So Matt is done with the party. He goes home. Foggy is there in a bit of a panic. So basically Foggy recaps what happened before and tells Matt that, yeah, we're going to trial, and Reyes is doing everything to fast track that trial. And when Matt is like, look, we can ask for an extension, Foggy delivers the bad news, and that is that Frank agrees because he wants to stick it to Reyes. So next week we have the trial of the Punisher. So, episode 7 basically starts off with Frank Castle walking into the courtroom like a badass, while the public, or at least the jury, seems to be 50-50 on Frank Castle, whether he's a hero or not. So, the prosecution, I think, I don't know, I'm not good with lawyer terms, but they have a difficult time finding a jury that is non-biased after everything that has happened. So, the main gang wants to go the PTSD route, but Frank says no, because that is a disgrace towards the people who actually suffer from PTSD. However, because Karen goes over there, but we do need someone, and Frank gives them Colonel Ray Schoonover? I think that was how you pronounce it. So, yeah, we're not gonna see him until, like, later on, but we got someone in Frank's quarter, kind of. Meanwhile, Elektra contacts Matt, and they go over to someone who can encode the ledger and figure out what really happened. So they go to the train yard. However, they open the train cart, and it turns out there's a bunch of sand in it, and we have a fight in order to escape from the train yard. And afterwards, we got a bit of stitching and some Nobu talk, because, you know, this is related to Nobu. However, the next day, Matt is late, and Foggy kind of has to cover for Matt, as in Matt was gonna do the opening, and now we need someone else to do the opening. And Foggy stumbles in the beginning, and then he comes back like a champion. We're gonna say the stumbling at the beginning was entirely planned in order to throw Reyes off. Okay? We're just gonna say that, even though that wasn't entirely the case, and it was just, he was scared out of his mind because Matt was supposed to be the opener. But Matt arrives late, and they're not really happy about it. However, there is a guy who did the autopsy reports, I think, and Matt wants to talk to that guy tomorrow. So Foggy lets him, and then later on, Karen and Matt are kind of going over the whole case and stuff like that. And then Karen kind of starts to side a bit more with the Punisher. And Matt doesn't really like that. And he wants to know why. And I feel like it's either because she shot Wesley back in season 1, or it's another reason entirely. But I think it might be because she shot Wesley. Because that might be her mind trying to rationalize the fact that she shot Wesley. She killed him, and now he won't be able to hurt anyone else. So she did a good thing. But because of the way that Matt talks about Punisher, she now thinks maybe that she did the wrong thing. I don't know, just spitballing here. However, after she leaves, Elektra comes in, and they talk about the Yakuza, and also more about Nobu. And they come to the conclusion that 44th and 11th was a location that Fisk wanted, because that was where Mrs. Garcia, I think was her name, lived. So tomorrow night, Matt and Elektra are gonna go over there because they think that is where the big plan is. They're correct. However, the next day, we have the witness, and the witness then comes all panicky and basically states that he needs to say something to the people. But so everyone leaves except for the lawyers and the judge. And then he talks about the fact that he falsified the report and that men in suits came to him because he had to do that. However, the reason that he confesses right now is because of the fact that a woman came in and kind of tortured him in order to be able to confess. And that kind of throws everything under the water. And we all know who that woman was. That's Elektra. So Foggy thinks Reyes did it. Reyes thinks that Nelson and Murdoch did it. And Foggy is so mad, but then Matt decides to tell Foggy the truth. And Foggy at this point is just done with Matt. He's like, look, do whatever you want, but you don't need to be involved in this trial anymore. He is done with Matt and all of his lies because he lied again. So he's basically done. And then at night, Matt attacks Elektra. However, Elektra is like, look, I tried to help. Also, the bad guys are right there. Are you gonna punch me or are you gonna punch them? So Matt goes down there, punches them all, and then they go into the building. And inside of building, they find Big Hole. So Matt is like, give me the flashlight, and he throws it down there. And he's gonna say when it hits the bottom. So the flashlight finally hits the bottom, and we learn that the hole is very, very deep. And the hand attacks. However, this time we have the premium soldiers, aka the ones who literally make no sound at all. No heartbeats, no temperature, nothing. So Elektra is like, focus on their weapons. So he does that, and he's able to kind of hold his own, but not really. But then Elektra gets attacked, and she gets hit pretty bad with poison. But then Stick comes around and saves the day, and takes them back to Matt's apartment, where he will make an antidote that will cure her. However, as they are making their way back, they are being followed by a million hand soldiers, which, look, I'm just gonna come out and say it, alright? I want to call these guys the foot soldiers. I'm sorry, I know it's a different limb, but you can understand, right? As a Ninja Turtle fan. But they basically escape all but one. And that one will come back at the end of the episode to bite everything in the ass. So Stick makes the antidote, gives it to Elektra, but then he kind of lets it spill that he knows Elektra. And Matt becomes very mad about that. It's like, what do you mean you know her? So Matt starts to attack Stick, and Stick's like, didn't we do that already? And I was like, yeah, we're gonna attack you every season until you're dead. But Stick basically trained Elektra for the war, just like he did with Maddie. However, technically Elektra came here of her own accord. She was in New York in order to do stuff for Stick. However, going to Maddie, that was her idea. Meanwhile, at the courtroom, because we have part 2 of the People versus Castle, we have Colonel Ray Schoonover or whatever. Look, man, in Dutch, that first part of his last name means clean. So every time I'm thinking of clean over. Just saying. It's difficult sometimes knowing 2 languages. And when the languages kind of intersect like this, it's kind of difficult. But he talks about Frank's one defining, I guess, mission. I don't know. He talks about one mission. Initially, he's like, you know that a bunch of that stuff is classified, right? It's like, yeah, okay, but that was the stuff that isn't classified. So he's like, alright, so there was this superior who wanted the team to go in there. However, Frank thought it would be a dumb idea. But since Frank isn't the superior, his say didn't really matter. They went in, and it turned out Frank was correct. It was a bad idea. So Frank, on his own, cleared out an entire landing zone so that the gang could escape. And then afterwards, Reyes is like, look, that's a nice story and all. But like, that's all it is. It's a story. Because unless people were actually there, how can we know that it's actually true? And he's like, because I was that superior who was an idiot. I lost my arm, and that's about all I lost. So that's good. So that's cool. And I like how Reyes gets completely caught off guard because I love the fight that Foggy technically is having with her. I love that so much. So, back with Matt, he gets the backstory on the hand. And it was basically, there were a couple of men, they found a powerful treasure of immortality, and they basically took over everything and then enslaved everyone. However, one kid fought back and then formed the Chaste. That's basically it. And Matt doesn't believe the story, which is like, you are a blind man who can fight. What do you mean? How can you not believe that? Yeah, that story is ridiculous. Not the story about a blind man kicking booty and taking names. Or spanking that booty if we're talking about Elektra. But also, the hand has a very special weapon called the Black Sky. However, when Matt asks him what that Black Sky does, Stick doesn't have an answer because every time there was a black sky, they stopped the hand from using it, just like in Season 1. Meanwhile, back in the courtroom, Foggy continues to kick booty in that courtroom. I love the way that Foggy just takes charge and I mean, I know he's terrified of probably pissing himself, but let's be honest, he was doing one fantastic job. And I just wanted to take this little moment here to congratulate him on that. But Karen has convinced Frank to take the stand. But Foggy is like, yeah, I can't do that. Matt has to do that. So Karen goes over to pick up Matt. However, Stick lets her in. And yeah, she sees Elektra in the bed. And well, instead of having a normal conversation with Matt, she just immediately starts to assume things and walk off. I will say this, out of the three, she is easily my least favorite character. I like her, but she's my least favorite of the three. But she immediately storms off after telling Matt that's like, alright, you're gonna interrogate Castle, that's it, bye. So the next day, Matt goes up and, well, it doesn't start off well. There's some hostility with Foggy, but overall they kind of get past it and then move on. They're not friends, kind of, but they get past it and move on. So, Matt starts to question Castle about what happened to his family because that's what Foggy wanted. But Castle, he's not really giving the answer, so Matt tries a different strat. He wants to go a little bit more hostile, and he gets it granted. So, he basically is like, look, Castle may not be all that well in his head, alright? But we need people like him, okay? He gets the scum off the streets, and we need that, because New York is sick. And let's be honest here, if you look at pictures of New York, it is still sick. Garbage bags everywhere. But Matt was mainly talking about the crime. I was kind of more talking about the rats and the garbage, but you know, you get the point across, and technically there's also a lot of crime nowadays in New York, so what do you do? But yeah, New York is sick and it needs people to step up because the cops can't do it alone. And then Matt leaves, and then Frank is like, can I have the word? Because when he got brought in there, the cop was like, you have a choice to make, good sir, and then left. And Matt heard that, so this was sabotage from the beginning. So Frank goes on and be like, look, you all call me like this murderous psychopath. I killed these people, and I do it again. You all call me the Punisher. Well, I am the Punisher. Here I am, the Punisher. I will punish all of you. And man, I really love John Bernthal's acting in this sequence. Man, he's so good, dude. He's so good as the Punisher. But he's like, I love killing them, and I do it again. Give me more scum, and I'll put them in the ground just like the rest of them. And basically sabotages his whole trial. So that's fantastic, and gets put away. Meanwhile, back at Matt's place, Elektra believes what Matt believes, and that is the fact that she can change and wants Stick gone. So Stick leaves and Matt comes home and he is very happy that Elektra has chosen him over Stick. However, when he leaves, he gets shot in the arm by an arrow and then dodges the second arrow and has a fight against the one-hand soldier that was still, which I still want to call foot, that was left. However, things go a little bit worse when he unmasks the person and the heartbeat starts to pump because of the fact that turns out to be a child because the hand is using kid soldiers, which to be honest is a perfect idea because you can't kill kids unless you're Elektra and then you just like slice their neck open, you know. I mean, that's also a possibility. But yeah, Elektra kills him and then Matt is horrified and she's like, Matt, do you still want me? And then my brain immediately goes like, are you okay in the head? Are you sure that damage that you took before did not like ruin your brain or something like that? because his one rule is no killing, and you broke it. He's told you this many times. But then Matt gets unconscious, so we'll deal with that in the next episode. And we learn, to end the episode, why Frank ruined his trial, and that is for a meeting with the Kingpin. Yes! Wilson Fisk is back, baby. Alright, this episode is perfect to be split in two, because we have two different storylines going on. We got all the stuff on outside of the prison, and we got inside the prison. So let's go with the not so good stuff, and then get into the really good stuff. So the not so good stuff is sadly enough outside of prison, because Punisher isn't part of it. Basically, after the last episode, Matt's not doing all that well. So Elektra heals him, and then also has a cleanup crew basically clean up his entire apartment. And then they basically have a little bit of a talk about the fact that, look, Elektra likes to kill, and Matt doesn't like killing. So basically they don't really work together. We also learned that Elektra's first skill was when she was 12, so starting them early, I guess. And Matt basically tells her, look, I'll save the city my way. I'll fight the hand my way, but I'll do it alone. So he pushes her away, because she wants to be good, but there is no way she can be good. Also, afterwards, Foggy comes to Matt, and basically he says, look, we might need a break, and then afterwards we can kind of like talk this out. Maybe we can get the friendship back to where it needs to be. And Matt is basically like, look, man, just leave. Nelson and Murdoch is done. You're better off without me. And if you see Karen, tell her the same thing. So Matt is actually doing what Styx said way back in season 1 of pushing people away. This is not good, Matt. You should not do that. Also, he says he'll fight the hand alone, and come on. At this point, we know Defenders is coming out. We know you're not gonna do this alone. You're gonna team up with Luke Cage, Iron Fist, and Jessica Jones, two of which we have met, one of which we haven't met yet. And let's be honest here, we're not necessarily too excited to meet Iron Fist, sadly enough. That season is sure something. So, Foggy goes back to the office and basically tells Karen the same thing. Basically, like, Nelson and Murdoch no more. And Karen has some pictures, because there was a dead guy at the park who then disappeared. And she kind of wants to find answers. But to be honest, Foggy's like, look, we're done. Alright, it's over. So instead, she goes over to Ellison and brings him everything that she knows. And then they both go to investigate. And this is where we get kind of the start of Karen's reporter arc, which, to be honest, I think actually is a very fitting career path for her. I like the fact that they want to make her a reporter, especially with her connection to Ben, and also because the fact that what she did way back in season 1 got into the newspaper, which got to Ben, and, you know, I like for her to take over from Ben. I do like that. The next reporter. But they basically go over to the dude in the courtroom, I forgot his name, and he basically is like, look, alright, you have to corroborate that story outside of using me, okay? You need to verify that this is true, because it is true, but you can't use my name. But it's like, yes, that person, he was an undercover cop, so some things were not really right with the whole park shooting that happened that killed Castle's family. We'll learn more about that later, but like I said, prison is the good part, so we'll save that for later. Not saying that this isn't good, it's just it's not as good. So Karen eventually gets Ben's office, basically, like Ellison is like, look, you can work here. And she opens up a case file, and it's like, oh, it's her, something that happened with her past, which we will deal with later. Not yet, though. And she starts to tear up, and Ellison is like, look, it doesn't matter to me. It didn't matter to Ben. Just find the truth, okay? So, Matt goes after bathroom guy from, you know, a previous episode. He wants answers. And, well, he doesn't quite get the answers that he wants, but that is because the hand has the bathroom guy's son hostage. And I like calling him bathroom guy, so I'm gonna call him bathroom guy. But they have his son hostage. So now we need to save the son. So Matt goes over there and basically finds the Asian guy from before. I don't remember his name either. From the party, the one who kissed Elektra's hand. The first one to kiss her hand. And Matt learns that in the basement they have blood. So they go over there, and turns out there are a bunch of teenagers who are kind of donating blood, but might be against their will, but might also not be. But they're donating their blood, and they're putting it all in some kind of weird pod, which we'll get back to in Defenders. And then bathroom guy comes in, and he's like, oh, my son, because apparently he followed Matt, so that's cool. He's like, oh, my son. However, the reunion is kind of short-lived because of the fact that we have another hand member who is there. And when he started to speak, I was like, Nobu, you're back, because I recognized that voice. And then he has the weapon later on. It's like, all right, this confirms it. But yeah, Nobu's back. He didn't die after all in season 1. What a shocking surprise. And he fights against Matt. However, Matt this time can defend himself better because the armor that he wears blocks and stuff. However, fighting-wise, he's not really doing a good job. I kind of wish he was, but he's not. It's a sad time, but he does get beaten. And then Nobu basically makes sure that the pot is secure and he leaves with the pot. And then Matt is like, you're supposed to be dead. And then Nobu's like, there is no such thing, but you can still see the burn scars that happened. So now let's get into the good part. So this episode starts off with Wilson Fisk getting put in prison from last year. And basically, he isn't the boss in the prison. Dutton is. So, because of the fact that Fisk is who he is, he needs to seize power. So what does he do? He gets a part of the cell block because of his funds under his control, but he can't get to Dutton until I'm gonna call him Black Nerd, okay? I'm gonna call him that because I don't remember his name and I don't really want to look it up. But Black Nerd, he comes in and he has a newspaper for Fisk. And Fisk sees in the newspaper the trial of the Punisher. And then Fisk's brain kind of his gears start turning. And he's like, wait, didn't Dutton do deals with all of the people that this Punisher fellow was after? And he uses basically the last bit of his funds in order to be able to get the Punisher in prison, and that is where the last episode basically ended. But I love seeing him in prison, like scheming, having his gears turn in order to take over the prison. But then he tells the Punisher, like, look, I know about your family. It was a tragedy that it happened. And there's someone in here who might be able to give you a bit more closure. Yes, I benefit from your victory. However, it is still closure. So eventually, reluctantly, Punisher agrees. Also, during this time, you have the Black Nerd and 2 other guys who are also there. And Black Nerd has a blade in his hand. However, for the rest of the scene, that blade is not in his hand until at the end when he gives it to Punisher. That was a weird thing that I noticed. But Punisher eventually agrees because obviously he needs that closure. So Fisk gets him into the prison. Gets him in the cell block, and he goes over to Dutton. He kills the one guy that Dutton has with him, and then Dutton tells him basically the truth. And that is the fact that the main bad guy for the Punisher story, I guess, is a guy named the Blacksmith. We never saw his face. We never really know anything about him. We just called him the Blacksmith. And also the fact that it was a setup. The whole deal was a setup. And after he tells that information, Punisher stabs him and leaves. However, he then gets betrayed by Fisk. So now he has to fight through a bunch of people. And back on the day of March 18th of 2016, I was not expecting Daredevil Season 2 to have 2 hallway fights, but he does. Because Punisher gets his own hallway fight. And that's not all. Because even though, yes, Daredevil had a hallway fight last season and has basically won this season, we all know that under that mask, there is no Charlie Cox. That's the stunt double. No. This time, we have John Bernthal, who gets a lot of the actual hallway fight. This is John Bernthal. Not all of it. There are stunt doubles. I saw them. But John Bernthal is basically doing a lot of this. There are cuts, obviously. It's not a no-cut one. But it was beautiful. And you actually see John Bernthal just like stabbing people, punching people. It was great. I love this one. This one is better than the last one, but still not as good as the first season one, because that one was no cut. That obviously wins. However, this one was really good as well. And he takes everyone out, and then afterwards, basically, the cops come in and just put him in a different place, basically in solitary, I guess. However, Fisk then comes in and is like, look, I didn't believe the stories about you. You know, how can one man do all that stuff? I thought it was exaggerated. However, I see once again a prime opportunity. I'm gonna have you released, and you're gonna wreak hell out there. And I'm gonna stay in here and keep my head down, because that is the game that Fisk is playing. He is literally playing the long game. And I love the fact that Fisk is that good, that he just plays the long game. He's like, let hell break loose outside, and then when I get released, I will take over the city once again like a good man. He served for his crime, and now he's back a reformed man, kind of like that. Because if he really wants to take over New York, it's not really gonna work if he breaks out of prison. But the Punisher likes to kill bad guys. So, let's have him run loose. And when he's done, and I'll get released It will be prime for the picking. It is a brilliant plan, but Punisher obviously agrees because he wants to get out of prison, and that's basically it. Punisher gets released, and that is basically that storyline. And I loved it. I love the Punisher stuff in this season. John Bernthal's so good, and I love the Punisher stuff. It's just the Elektra stuff and the hand stuff. It's kind of letting this season down, and it hurts because John Bernthal's so good. I can't wait to get to the Punisher because I know that one is a bit more mixed, the show. But I really like the Punisher. Second season especially, like that one is top tier. First season is kind of muddy, but second season is top tier, but we'll get there when we get there. So let's get to the episode 10. So episode 10 starts off with Brett finding the blood victims, and Matt basically tells him that they should be taken to the hospital where Claire works. So that's fun. Claire's back, baby. And also Matt learns that Frank Castle has been freed, so that's great. So the team of Nelson and Murdoch gets brought to Reyes, who talks about the fact that she was involved in the park killings because she wanted to go after the blacksmith, and the one mistake that led to all of this was the fact that she did not clear the park before allowing the operation to go through, which resulted in, you know, what happened. So Reyes gets shot, Foggy gets shot as well, and everyone thinks that Frank did that. However, if you look closely, or you have been paying attention so far in Daredevil Season 2, you know that this isn't Frank Castle's job, because it was too messy. First of all, Foggy got hit, an easy one. And second of all, after Reyes goes down, the gun keeps firing. This is too chaotic, too unfocused. It is not Castle's way. Castle, he said it before, I think, it was one shot, one kill, that's it. Make every shot count, don't waste the bullets. This was a waste, so it wasn't him. But because of the fact that Frank is out of the prison, Matt kinda wants to know, so he goes to prison to visit Mr. Fisk himself. Yes, another interaction between Matt and Fisk. And it is pretty good. At the beginning, Fisk has all of the control because he's just being calm and collected about the fact, look, Punisher's not here, right? Did you let him go? No, I didn't. But then Matt starts to play a bit dirty because he's like, yeah, you don't want to answer my question? Fine. I'll make sure Vanessa can never come back into this country again. And then Fisk just grabs him and slams him on the table. Which, look, he is literally hitting a blind man. Look, he doesn't know that Matt isn't blind, but he's hitting a blind man. What? Come on, you're not looking good in any situation. However, because of that fact, Matt figures out that Fisk basically controls the prison and that Fisk actually wants Punisher out there. I forgot if he figured out the fact. No, I forgot that he figured out that the reason is in order to get rid of competition, but maybe he figured that one out. I don't know if he figured that one out. However, he does get a hit off on Fisk, and then Fisk is like, son of a boxer. I love it. Oh my god, Wilson Fisk, Vincent D'Onofrio is so good. Meanwhile, Karen goes over to Ellison in order to, kind of like talk about it with him. And he's like, alright, who else would Punisher want dead? It's like, oh, hey, there's this guy, the medical examiner. So they go over to his place and he's dead. And then comes one scene that I'm kind of iffy about, because it turns Karen into a stupid person. I don't care what you say, it turns Karen into a stupid person. Because they go there, they see that Tepper's dead. Once again, too many bullets were wasted. This isn't Castle's work. Karen then is like, this isn't Castle's work. And then Allison's like, look, you need to get your personal feelings out of the way, okay? You just need to look at the facts. And it's like, well, first of all, her personal feelings are actually correct. And she starts to fall for it. However, he then tells her to give everything to the cops, everyone who could potentially be in danger. So she's like, I need to go home in order to grab the stuff. And he's like, alright, fine. And he grabs two cops and is like, alright, you two are going with her. And she then is like, oh, you wouldn't do this with Ben, the patriarchal crap, or whatever she says. And on the top of the hospital, Claire basically asks Matt why he isn't with Foggy, and Matt's like, yeah, I don't need friends. And it feels like he kind of starts to question his way, especially with seeing that Fisk controls the prison, being like, maybe putting the bad guys in prison might not be such a good idea, or like following the law, because then people like him take control of a prison where they're supposed to be in order to reform. But the system just doesn't work, so he kind of starts to lose faith there. I don't think he's gonna go in the killing way, but he's like, the system fails. That's as far as he goes. And Claire also reveals that Basically, this is how I'm gonna explain it. She explained it in a different way, but I'm basically gonna explain it that they made a cocktail inside of the blood of the victims, because they took out blood and put in toxins. So in a sense, they kind of made a cocktail that they put into the big thing. I don't know what it's called, but into the thing. So Matt basically gets disgusted by it. So Karen goes home, she goes into her apartment, one of the cops flirts with her, but of course he does, and she starts to go through that, and then Castle appears and takes out the 2 cops. Then he enters the apartment and is like, look, it wasn't me, I didn't do it. And then he notices something and grabs Karen and pulls her down, and then shots are being fired. And then he's like, believe me now? Meanwhile, in the prison cell, I found this scene a bit weird, but I get it now. Fisk takes... He's got like one of those like plastic cups with wine in it. I couldn't stop laughing. But he takes a sip of it and his wound hurts. And then he's like, hey, ask Mr. Donovan to get the files on Mr. Murdoch. And it's like he's starting to realize that Murdoch might be the devil of Hell's Kitchen. Which, to be honest, in a realistic setting, he would have already known this because of the voice. Alright? Because of the voice. He doesn't change his voice. He doesn't have a voice changer. He literally just talks like himself. So, but with the voice, yeah, he would have known it. But, you know, comic books and all that stuff, you kind of need to suspend disbelief, because otherwise the stories just wouldn't work. But he realized it because of the hit that he took. It's like, you know, something's off. Give me the files. Maybe, you know, maybe in there I can find something. Meanwhile, with Elektra, because, yes, she's also still in this show, she's gonna leave New York. However, then a guy appears and then attacks her, and she basically says, like, you know, I tell the Hand to stop coming for me, okay? And then he's like, I'm not working for the Hand, I'm working for Stick. So Stick wanted to kill Elektra, which, if you know the future, you know. Alright, here's a little spoiler, I guess, for either the rest of this season or the Defenders, but Elektra has a black sky. So basically, this is just Stick trying to kill a black sky, as he always does. Meanwhile, they attack the hospital. Well, not necessarily attack, that's more in the next episode, but they begin their attack by climbing up to the hospital, and we learn that the blood donors are working with the Hand, and Bathroom Guy is dead. So episode 11 starts off with Matt fighting off the Hand, but it doesn't really work, and they escape with the blood donors. And then afterwards, Matt tells Claire about the Hands. He comes clean about it, and it sounds as ridiculous as it is. Because this episode isn't really about the Hand, because this episode is more about Castle. Because after the last episode, Karen now gets protection from the police. And also afterwards, Karen tells Matt the truth, that Frank protected her, and also that the reason the blacksmith is after her is because she's been working with Ellison. And yeah, Matt thinks it's stupid, but hey, you know Matt, right? Of course he was gonna say that. So Karen gets taken to this hotel, I guess. And weirdly enough, the cops don't place people in front of the... Okay. It's weird. They don't have anyone anywhere. She gets police protection, but is able to slither away from the police protection like that. There's no one outside her door. The 2 cops that brought her go into the elevator, and she escapes with Frank through the car park. No, that's not what I would call protection, but sure. But she escapes. She joins Frank. Meanwhile, Marcy offers Foggy a job, and it's actually pretty nice to him. I wasn't expecting this kind of side from Marcy, but I guess you don't really know a person sometimes. And this is a positive thing, by the way. But she kind of offers him a job because she's like, look, what you did at the courtroom. He's like, we lost the case. Who cares? You were fantastic. And everyone took notice. And now that you are a free man, anyone will want to swoop you up. So I'm gonna throw your name around and see what pops up. And also, Claire gets kind of blamed for what happened to the hospital, and they have one of the Hand guys right there, and apparently an autopsy has been performed on this guy before. Also, the dude's 5'10", and I was like, that isn't that tall. Not forgetting that I'm 5'7", and being like, but this guy has been dead before. The soldiers that the Hand uses are all dead men walking. So Matt goes over to Blake in order to interrogate him for information about the blacksmith. And Blake tells him, yeah, Chinatown is where the rival company is. So Matt goes over there in order to get information. Also, Frank knows that Karen is in love with Matt. which is gonna be awkward in Born Again, which has potentially already released by the time this comes out, but still is awkward for Born Again, because apparently in that one he's gonna get a different girlfriend, so that's cool. And also, Frank used her as bait to lure the blacksmith people to him. So he takes out the blacksmith people and then asks for a location, and he gets a location and tells Karen, look, get police protection, tell the cops everything, I'm gonna go to the location, okay, bye. Meanwhile, Matt goes to Chinatown and attacks the place, and he finds Madame Gao. She's back for one episode, I guess, but she's back. How nice to see her. And initially, you know, there's a bit of tension because of the fact that she's someone who's bad and he's someone who's good. But lucky for her, he's not after her. What he wants is information on the blacksmith. So she gives kind of information, but very vague. She's like, yeah, it's at the pier. And also, it's probably heavily guarded. So Matt heads over to the pier. Meanwhile, Claire is officially told that she can't speak about this and everything will kind of blow over because the hospital needs money, and Claire gets mad about that. So she's like, you know, hey, call this strike 3 because back in my day, sounding like an old woman, this place used to be about helping people, but now it's all about greed. So I quit. And she leaves. So Matt goes over to the pier and kind of like scopes it out, starts listening to everything around him in order to find something. Meanwhile, Frank just walks up and guns people down. Wasn't that hard, Matt. Wasn't that hard. So Matt goes over there, but he's too late, obviously, because the fact he was pretty far away. So Punisher literally guns everyone down, and then afterwards he finds the guy who is the quote-unquote blacksmith, and then wants to kill him because he wants the guy to say that he's the blacksmith so that Frank can get closure. But then Daredevil comes in and he's like, stop this, he's lying, I can tell when someone's lying, and he's lying. So we have another fight between Daredevil and Punisher. However, this time around it's more of a one-sided fight because Matt doesn't want to fight. Matt's like, I'm not gonna fight you, while Punisher's just punching him. But then bad guys show up. So Matt's brilliant plan is, let's escape, because of the fact that Frank has put gasoline all over the place. So Matt's ready to get off the ship, and then Frank pushes him off the ship and then gets up, and the bad guys see him and they're like, yo, Frank, and they start opening fire, which means they know Frank, and that is very important because the blacksmith also knows Frank. But we'll get there when we get there, potentially next episode, but possibly the finale. But because of the fact that they were shooting, the ship now blows up. Frank is presumed dead, but since he has a 2-season Netflix show, I don't think he died there. And then afterwards, Elektra goes after Stick, and Matt gets told about it because Elektra stabs 2 guys, kills one, the other one's still alive and able to drive all the way over to Matt. Crashes into everything, but still able to drive, by the way. This is an amazing driver, nothing stops him. But he gets to Matt, Matt goes downstairs, and he's like, she's going after Stick. Who? Elektra. And then we see Elektra standing in front of Stick, so let that battle begin. So in episode 12, we start this off with a little Elektra getting trained by Stick, and eventually she kills the person who she was training with. In the beginning she doesn't, but then he comes back later on, and then she's like, I'm sorry, and then he tries to kill her, and then because of she being Black Sky and all, and she kind of kills him. Afterwards, we got a guy we have a guy named Star, which, sure, that's a cool name, but a man named Star who wants Elektra dead. And Stick doesn't want that to happen, so he kills Star and takes Elektra and escapes. And then afterwards, I don't know how much later, but later, let's just say later, he puts her with the family that she eventually grows up with and why she is so rich. So that's the backstory then. Alright. Meanwhile, back in present day, we have Elektra fighting Stick. And then Matt comes in and tries to stop it. And then the Hands join in as well. Fantastic. However, in all the commotion, they have now taken Stick. So now, Matt wants to save him. And Elektra's like, why? He's a horrible person. And Matt's like, yeah, but he's my horrible person. Meanwhile, the cops are fishing bodies out of the river and all the places because of the boat explosion, and they still do not have a body or confirmed body for Frank, but of course he's not dead. And Matt, back at the office, is trying to search through, for where the Hand could be. And then Foggy comes in, and they have a little nice chat. But Matt, he doesn't convince Foggy to give Nelson and Murdoch another shot. But he also tells Foggy because Foggy asked him about the fact that he's looking for something. And then Foggy's like, well, you know, they'd be idiots if they went that way. No, you need to use the train tracks and stuff like that, you know, railroad, that kind of stuff. There are other ways as well, so that helps Matt narrow down the search. So Foggy, once again, is an absolute legend, and then he goes there to rescue Stick. Meanwhile, Allison tells Karen that the story is not over. You're not done yet. There's more to this story. A story just doesn't end. A story can change, but it doesn't end. Well, no. A story can change, but it doesn't disappear. It doesn't just vanish. Story's over. No. There is a story. It just changes. So, instead, Karen now thinks of a different piece to write. And then she goes over to Ray because she needs to... Basically, she wants to talk to the only person who actually knew Frank. And the only one that she knows about. So, she goes over there. Talks to him. However, then she notices in the pictures that there's a guy there who was also at the docks and who was one of the burned bodies. So she realizes, wait a minute, this Ray fellow might actually be Blacksmith. However, he then realizes that she realizes, so he takes her hostage and they get into her car and he basically wants to get rid of her. But she turns on the car and then the music starts playing, as in basically Frank is signaling Karen like, don't you worry, I'm here. I'm alive and I'll take him down. So she drives off, and then in the woods, the blacksmith is like, pull over, and then Frank crashes into them. Meanwhile, Matt found the hand. He's now fighting his way to Stick, and Stick tells him, look man, it's not all about heartbeats, movements, weapons. You can also just track them through their breath. So he starts doing that and takes them all down, and eventually rescues Stick, only for Elektra to show up. And obviously Matt knows that Elektra was following him, and that is something that Stick did not want, because the head desperately wants Elektra because she is the Black Sky, and the Black Sky is supposed to be the leader of the hand, which is kind of funny, because what if Elektra said stop fighting? Would they listen? She's the boss, right? Is it just me? If she says, hey, we're gonna be good people from now on, would they listen or not? Because the Black Sky is the leader, right? I don't know. Just a thought that popped in my head when he was like, you're a leader now. And it's like, what if she was a good person? What if she said we have to do good things? We have to donate part of our funds to the charities. We gotta stop crime. Would they do it? However, she thinks about joining the hand, and Matt kind of convinces her otherwise. And then she joins Matt, gets Stick out, Matt fights, and eventually also escapes. And now Nobu wants Daredevil dead, but that is the next episode, because we gotta finish this off with Punisher again. Punisher then goes over to the blacksmith, ready to just kill him, and Ray is basically like, look man, this was never about just a drug deal gone wrong. This was about Kandahar, or well, however you pronounce that. I think I wrote it right. But Kandahar, it's about that, okay? What happened there? That's what this is about. And before we can learn anything more, Punisher kills him. So my guess is we're gonna learn more about that in the Punisher Season 1. A little tease for Punisher Season 1. Just like how in a couple episodes before, I think it was episode 10, we had Wilson Fisk. Basically, I forgot to say this actually during that episode, but in that episode, we had Wilson, where Matt and Wilson like talk. After the whole Vanessa thing, Fisk is like, you're scared about the Punisher? Just wait for me, basically. And it's like, ooh, he's kind of teasing Season 3, which is going to be a good one. But my guess is that the stuff that the blacksmith talks about is more saved for Punisher Season 1. And then he kills him in a shed, or I don't know what you want to call that, but let's call it a shed. However, then he wants to grab something, and something else opens up. And he finds a big gun room, which you might think is all about the Punisher's Season 1. But no, this will come into play in the next episode. Don't you worry about that. And also, what I also forgot to talk about is, from the guy that Elektra killed, she got like these sais, I think that's the name. And it's the same weapon that Raphael has in the Ninja Turtles. And those are also her comic book weapons. So it's nice that she got them. I wanted to say that too, because she used them in the fight against Stick in this episode. But next episode is, I guess, the finale of Daredevil versus the Hand. We've made it to the finale, boys. So, in this episode, the pod is finally fully finished and ready for use if need be. And Matt, back at home, he is helping Stick. Also has him tied to a chair, but he's helping him a bit, cleaning him up, and also kind of needs to figure out a way in order to stop the Hand. And Elektra kind of starts doubting herself a bit, at which point Matt goes up and is like, look, Stick gave me the same speech about how special we are, that fortune cookie wisdom that he I like that line, fortune cookie wisdom. But one thing is for sure, we have to take the fight to Nobu now, because he is the head. If we can, because like Elektra immediately goes on with being like, we gotta kill him, and Matt's like, no, but because that'll make him a martyr. We gotta end him. We gotta discredit him. We gotta literally take him down so that their god isn't as godly as they think that they are. Because even your god can bleed. And we have another special guest character in this episode, because Foggy is going to work for the wench, the Wicked Witch. To anyone who hasn't seen my spoiler talk or review of Jessica Jones Season 1, I'm talking about Hogarth. I don't like that woman. No disrespect towards the actress, by the way. She did a fantastic job. But I don't like the character Hogarth. That's why I call her the wench. And Melvin gives Elektra a new outfit that was made for Betsy. It was made and meant to be for Betsy, but Elektra gets it. Borrows it. However, she says it won't be a scratch on it. I can guarantee you there's gonna be some scratches on that thing. And Matthew gets a new stick that does all the comic booky stuff. And Frank finally enters his own house. The moment that he enters this house, you see his boots, and I'm like, hey, Frank, he's home. Frankie boy is finally home. And he just looks around a bit. And then he goes into the garage. At least I think the garage, or maybe it's somewhere else. He grabs a spray can and he starts spraying a skull on the body armor. As in, he's finally getting his logo. Meanwhile, Brett got roughened up because the Hand wanted files on Daredevil. And mainly who Daredevil has saved. So that they can kidnap them and lure Daredevil. And Matt has a hard time tracking them. Also, one of the people that Matt apparently saved was Turk, which I don't get why. Okay, sure. But Turk has an ankle monitor, and he turned it off in order to go for a little bit of a stroll. So Karen tells him to turn it on. Also, the old man from the Daredevil Punisher rooftop talk is back, and he dies, sadly enough. R.I.P. the legend, the veteran. But Turk turns it on, and that is what eventually leads Daredevil to where the hostages are. Because the cops are there as well, and then they get shot at by arrows. What is this? It's modern day, come on. We could do better than arrows. Silenced pistols would have been better. Snipers even. Silenced snipers. Nah, I think actually a silencer doesn't really block the noise. I think it just like spreads it around everywhere so that you don't know where it's coming from. At least I heard something about that. So Matt goes over there and Elektra's like, look man, I'm not here for them. Alright, we gotta take down Nobu. And this is exactly what he wants. And Daredevil's just like, alright, hey, if you don't want to help, you just sit tight, relax, just sit down, have yourself a cup of tea, I'll take care of this. So Matt goes in to rescue the hostages, and he does so, and then Elektra comes in and helps him out because of after everyone's been saved, because Elektra can't be in the same room as Karen, because Elektra was lying in Matt's bed earlier on. So if they get in the same room, I like that little detail that they have where it's like they can't put them in the same room without explicitly saying you can't be in the same room. But she takes out a couple of people and is like, look, I was bored. And then they take on the Hand, they run, and then Matt's like, alright, where do you want this basically the final battle to happen? Do you want it to happen in the building or on the roof? And she's like, I've always liked fresh air. So they head up to the roof, and that new Elektra suit, by the way, looks smashing. You know, I'm a fan of black and red. I am a very big fan of black and red. So seeing that suit was like, mwah! I loved it. I love the design of it too. I love Matthew's suit as well. But it's just wearing body armor, so I don't really call it a suit. But I like his outfit too. But I love the outfits of Daredevil and Elektra. But before they get to the roof, Matt's like, alright, if we survive this, I will run away with you. Alright? I'll give up everything I have to be with you. We'll go wherever you want. Alright? So she's gonna die. Simple as that. Can't make it any more simpler. The moment that you make a promise like that, she's gonna definitely die. Whether it's permanent or not, we'll learn later on. But she's definitely going to die. But they get to the roof and are ready for the final battle. And they start running up to the soldiers. And then Nobu's like, wait. And then Nobu fights them at the beginning and then tells the soldiers to grab the Black Sky, who has no name outside of Black Sky. This is Elektra. Stop disrespecting her. So for most of this fight, I guess, it is mainly Matt versus Nobu, because Elektra is basically busy with the foot soldiers. Until Matt is about to die and Elektra sacrifices herself in order to save him. She dies. And I like how everyone just stops doing what they're doing. Like, Nobu just keeps lying on the ground. The hand soldiers, I wanted to say foot soldiers, but the hand soldiers stay back perfectly fine. Like, let them have this moment. He's like, no, don't die, please. It's like they let him have that moment. It's always funny when shows or movies do that kind of stuff, where it's like, now it's your perfect time to attack, but they don't attack. But then after the moment is done, it's like, alright, everybody get up, let's fight again. So Matt fights Nobu, and then the soldiers start to come in, and they want to fight Matt as well, and then gunshots, because Punisher is here to save the day. So Punisher takes a couple of them out. Also, before this, during the fight, Nobu kicked off Daredevil's helmet. So Punisher now knows that Matthew Murdock is Daredevil. But basically, Punisher takes care of the foot soldiers while Matt goes for Nobu, and he beats him and throws him off the roof. And that's it. And I like how Punisher says, like, see you around, Red, and Daredevil can actually hear that, so that's pretty cool. However, the problem is, after this, during the Netflix era, I'm not talking about Disney Plus with Born Again, during the Netflix era, they never met up again, and I find that a very big shame. But maybe that could have happened later on, but it just didn't, and it's a bit of a shame, I will say that. But at least we're getting it in Born Again. But now everything is great. Everything is saved outside of the fact that Elektra's dead. However, Stick has freed himself, goes over to where Nobu is, and beheads him, and then walks off. And then afterwards, we have a burial for Elektra. This is like a little bit after the final battle, around Christmas time. But we have the burial for Elektra. It's very sad. Also, Foggy closes the tab that he has, the long-running tab at Josie. So that's fun too, basically, but also not really fun because of the fact that it officially cements the end of Nelson and Murdock. Karen writes a page about the vigilante stuff and everything that has transpired over the course of the second season of Daredevil. And to end this season off, we have Matt, who apparently called Karen and tells her to go to the Nelson and Murdock office. And she meets him there, and she's like, "Why am I here?" And he's like, "I have something here." And then she's like, "I don't want anything." And it's like, "No, you have to see it." And then she accepts it. So he pulls it out, and it turns out it is the Daredevil helmet. So he tells her, "I'm Daredevil." And that is the end of the season, outside of like I guess you could call it a post-credit scene, where we have Elektra being put in that pod, which was finished, and is going to be revived. Because beforehand, Elektra was like, "Look, I'm dead. They can't have me now. The day is saved." Yeah, but as Nobu has already shown, they have the power of regeneration, so they can bring you back to life. Damn it. Come on. And that is season 2 of Daredevil. Overall, I loved it. I did not fully love it though, because it does feel like two storylines mashed together kind of sloppily, because they don't really work together all that well. And we have some moments where the Punisher gets taken away so that we don't have to focus on that anymore, and we can focus on the Elektra storyline. I mean, in episode 4, Daredevil takes down the Punisher, and then basically the whole of episode 5 is about Elektra. It is a bit sad in that sense. I kind of wish that the season focused more on the Punisher, but overall I think that they did a really good job in that way of not having too many storylines, because no matter how you look at it, this is still 2 storylines. If you look at Iron Man 2, Batman v Superman, Dawn of Justice, there's like 15 storylines all trying to share the same spotlight. Here, at least, we basically just have 2. We got the Punisher stuff and the Elektra stuff. And overall, they did a good enough job with it, where this season is the worst that Daredevil has to offer, but it's still not as bad as like other seasons on Netflix from the Netflix stuff, or even a lot of the Marvel movies. And I will still say, I would rather we rewatch this season than watch anything on Disney Plus that has come out as of me recording this. I would like to say that, because as of recording this, Daredevil Born Again has not yet been released. This is recorded and edited before Daredevil Born Again comes out. So maybe Daredevil Born Again is going to be the one Disney Plus show where I'm going to be like, yeah, I would rather watch that than Daredevil Season 2. But I love the serious stuff that it deals with. I like how it also takes characters to different places. Like Foggy goes to work for the Wench. We have Karen, who becomes a reporter. We have the whole Punisher storyline. There's a lot of good stuff in this season. It's just a bit muddy, and the score that I gave it in my review, I will stick by that, and I have yet to record that, so I do not know what score I'm gonna give it at the moment, so I'm not gonna say what the score is. But overall, I really enjoyed season 2 of Daredevil. So that has been the spoiler talk. So let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. What did you think of Daredevil season 2? are you pissed off about the fact of the two storylines happening? Or is it like me, where it's like, yeah, it's fine. You know, the way that I see it is like, it's fine. I would have liked it if it was better, but it's fine. You know, I really still like the season. Or is it just like a season ruiner for you guys? Let me know in the comment section down below. And with that being said, thank you all so very much for watching this long spoiler talk. Longer than the first season, that's for sure. And thank you all so very much for watching. And I do hope you guys have enjoyed. And if you did, please like button, subscribe if you're new, if you've done so already. Turn on notifications. Don't forget to check out my Let's Play channel. Link to the description and at the end of the video. And it's gonna take us a pretty long time before we get to that beautiful third season, because we have a lot, and I mean a lot of stuff left to do. Because of the fact that if I look at my listing, it says here that number 22 is Daredevil Season 2, and number 41 is Daredevil Season 3. So as you can basically hear by that numbering, we have a lot of stuff left to do. We almost have 20 more things to do before we can get to Daredevil Season 3. So like I said, it is going to take a long time. But hopefully we will be able to do that stuff before the end of the year. But what is up next? Well, there is something that is kind of running concurrently with the back half of this season. And also moving past this season. So basically, the back half and the first half of those two seasons kind of like overlap with each other in the timeline sense. Because next up, we got the big black indestructible man called Luke Cage. Bye!